Hello, my name's Dennis Byrd. I'm superintendent at the Williamsburg Independent School District. I've been in this position for the past 12 years and been in education for 23 years. Have been out of education a little bit, but most of my life has been involved in the educational process. I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about school law. Two things that's come is probably just the most important as superintendent that you have to deal with. One of them is school law, and the other one is school finance. And so you must be versed in those areas to be an effective superintendent. Now again, there's other personnel issues and things that you have to deal with, but those are two primary things that you must know. I spend a lot of time with school law and taken many courses in relation to that through the educational department in learning more and more about that area. There is a tremendous difference between school law and just regular law. It's really an entity in itself, and it's very important as a superintendent that you understand the functions schools have. And then also, besides just school law itself, you have special education that also is a major factor when students are identified, and you must know certain laws and procedures that you have to go to. There's two things that I have here today to show you that's very important. One of them is called the Kentucky School Laws, this is the 2010 edition. We get these about every 2 years. They're updated through the Department of Education to keep us in tune with what's going on in the actual laws and also legislative procedures that go along with the law. The other thing is our school policy manual. This is also updated every year, in which we go through our policies, we update them, and then we look at procedures. The difference between the two is, like, for instance, in the Kentucky law, you'll have a definition of what is a teacher. And then you'll also go into tenure, which is how long they've been working, all those different things, who you can hire, relatives that you can't hire, all those things are listed in the Kentucky law. Then as a board, your school board, which is a 5-member board that would develop policies that your school would abide by in order to enforce the Kentucky laws. And then they also have not only the policy, they have the procedures. And you have to combine the two as you go through. For instance, hiring practices have to be a policy and a procedure that tie into what the actual Kentucky law says. So as a superintendent, it's extremely important that you stay in tune with not only the current laws that involve Kentucky schools, but you must also know the policies and procedures that your school adopts in order to continue to do the things that's necessary for a school district. Some of the things you do as a superintendent, as far as law is concerned, you need to have a knowledge not only of the hiring practices, the procedures that when you have to deal with issues with not only with students and parents, but also with the personnel, you have to understand what your ground rules are as you deal with the different issues. And especially with social media today, there's a lot more pressure put on you to make sure you do things exactly right and do it by the law, because many superintendents down through the years, and especially since social media has come into play, have gotten into some hot water by not knowing the law and how to proceed. And then, as I said, I mentioned special education. There is a lot of regulations that you must abide by as you deal with students who have some type of situation where you get special help in our special ed department. So with that being said, it's very important that you understand your role as a superintendent and what you can do. And this also, you have to be knowledgeable to be able to tell your other administrators what they can do. Many, many times here, a situation will come up and one of the administrators will come to me and say, how do we handle this situation? So then I have to make sure that I can go to the law and to the procedure and to the policy that we have of how to deal with that. So it's also just as important for other administrators to understand the process. Also, when you're purchasing property as a superintendent, there are procedures where you must get appraisals of the property you're purchasing. You must get a title opinion. You must make sure deeds are properly done, and all those are part of the process that you go through as a superintendent, and you need to have an understanding of those procedures also. What needs to be recorded at the courthouse. I've been also involved in court cases where you have a situation where you have to go to court and testify in certain situations. So law is extremely important in the school realm, and one that each of us need to understand if you go into this area of occupation. So I feel very strongly that know your school law, and again I mentioned finances also. Those are two major factors that one needs to be very well versed in if they plan to go into the superintendency. One of the other things that as we have to understand, the school board, as I said earlier, is a 5-member board that's elected by your community, and in that they hire 2 people. They hire the superintendent and they hire the attorney for the school board. So we have a board attorney that in most cases we meet once a month, and that's by law. Sometimes you can have special call meetings. And if you have a special call meeting, of course, you have to dictate what's going to be discussed in that special meeting. You don't just have a meeting, say we're going to have a special meeting. You've got to advertise, and you've got to also say why you're having a special meeting. Other than that, you have a monthly board meeting in which your 5 board members are to attend, along with myself and a secretary and also the board attorney. And of course, they are there to help you if any issues come up during that board meeting. Also, many times I have to go down to the board attorney and present things to him, and many times I have to explain to him actually what the law is in reference to school law, so they can do the necessary things that are required by a school district. There has been some situations, to give you some example, I've been in federal court as well as county court in reference to certain policies or procedures that I have to go through when personnel is involved. One in particular I can tell you about where I released a person that actually was not on tenure. Now tenure is a way a teacher or an employee can get guaranteed rehiring every year, provided they do the job. For a teacher, if you hire a teacher for 4 years and they are hired the 5th year, then they receive tenure. And same thing with your classified people 4, and then if you hire them the 5th, they also have that tenure law to come into effect, although it's not called tenure with classified, but it's still the same thing. So what happens when you're terminating a position, you must have a lot of good grounds to do that, even if that person doesn't even have tenure. An example is I had one person that had worked 1.5 years here. They were not doing their job, and I ended up terminating their position. Well, they proceeded to go through hiring their own attorney, and we went to court. And it took approximately 5 years to settle this, and it was settled in federal court, in that process I had to go to London to their the federal courthouse. We negotiated. You have your insurance involved in it because schools have insurance that protect them from certain incidents like that, liability and so forth. So I had to go with the insurance person and the attorney to deal with that, and we met with a judge, federal judge, in settling that situation. Another thing that could be, I had one case where a lady was an aide on a bus and was injured when someone hit the back of the bus, and that had to be settled in court also. So you have to be able to testify in court and give, specific information in order to solve some of the situations you have here. Another situation is just like coming up. Sometimes we have students that do things that can be very damaging, and there's laws. For instance, I've had situations where someone made a threat that was pretty severe, and we might suspend them for a certain time, but they will have to go to the board and present their case, and then there's going to be certain ways that student can even be accepted back into the school system simply because of the safety of the other students. Those again are law situations where you have to make sure you know the school law in dealing with those issues. And many times an attorney that's not voiced in school law, you have to lead that attorney to understand what's got to be done too. So I spend a lot of time with my attorney at times to go over certain aspects of school law, because many attorneys are involved not just in school law, they're involved in many other cases, and divorce cases, other criminal cases, whatever. So it's almost a specialty that has to be done. So I want to emphasize the fact, if you're going into administration of a school system, especially a public school, it's very important that you understand the distinction between school law and the distinction between just regular lawing. So it's important to have that attorney you can work with and make sure that they understand where you're coming from, because it can keep you out of a lot of situations that could end up costing your district a lot of money. So again, keep that in mind as you go into this field. And as you take a course in school law, it's extremely important that you listen and pay attention, because you're going to be spending a number of years, if you're in the administration, having to deal with issues that you just really didn't think you'd have to deal with. So it's very important that you know that.